Dr. Smith is too good for a woman like you.
I understood that my handsome husband, Dr. Kevin Smith, was popular. But I never expected to hear such a thing from a nurse at the hospital. I knew I had to ignore this, completely ignore it. I decided to ignore it entirely.
Just get a divorce, you fat, ugly woman.
Those words made me angry. I started to retaliate, vowing to curse her and her descendants. My name is Amanda. I'm a 42-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband, Kevin Smith, for 14 years, and we've built a peaceful home without any major arguments. Recently, my only concern has been our 6th-grade daughter becoming a bit rebellious. Our 4th-grade son is still mischievous but adorable. Kevin works as a doctor at a large hospital, and his job keeps him extremely busy. However, he never neglects our family, and when he's home, he values our family time, being a good father and husband. But he is busy. It's normal for him to be called in suddenly, leaving family trips midway, and he rarely gets long weekends off. He's never attended any of our children's school events, and when I think about it, I don't think he's ever changed a diaper. Kevin often.
The reason I can focus on my work is because Amanda supports me. Thank you for always being there for me.
Says. I'm not bragging, okay? Really, I'm not bragging at all. I'm just stating the facts. Despite being busy, Kevin is kind, and I have no complaints about our loving family. But things aren't that simple. I've had a long-standing frustration. It's that Kevin is too handsome. I'm not bragging. Sure, he's handsome in a kind way, but Kevin's actual face is genuinely handsome. Now in his mid-40s, his handsome looks have gained a mature charm, making him even more attractive. Should I say he's a handsome middle-aged man? Well, anyway, he's really good-looking. This isn't just my biased opinion. Kevin has always been popular. Before we got married, there were countless women who approached him even though they knew we were dating. After we got married, I thought the competition would end, but then came women who didn't mind being his mistress. Even having children didn't stop them. One woman even suggested a bizarre relationship with the nanny. Of course, every Valentine's Day, he gets a mountain of chocolates. Working at a large hospital, he receives chocolates not only from many nurses but also from patients, even those currently hospitalized. How do they buy chocolates while in the hospital? It turns out the hospital gift shop sells nicely wrapped chocolates. Kevin and I used to consume these chocolates. Kevin never gains weight no matter how much he eats, but I'm different. I gain weight proportionately to what I eat. It's really a problem. This year, I had our kids help eat the chocolates, but there's only so much I can give them. Sweets are good for relieving stress, but I can't just force them on Kevin. And honestly, I don't want him to eat chocolates from women who are genuinely in love with him. Yes, I know. It's ridiculous for a woman in her 40s to be this insecure and jealous. But I can't help it, I'm genuinely in love with Kevin. Luckily, there's no sign of Kevin being interested in other women, so I can talk about this with a light heart. However, what if someone really serious about taking him away came along? What if she was stunningly beautiful, had a great figure, and was a young woman? Would I be able to win? As I looked in the mirror and questioned myself, no, I can't. I found myself muttering these pitiful words. One day, Kevin called me saying he forgot an important document in his study. He said he couldn't come back to get it, so he asked if I could bring it to him. To be honest, I don't like his workplace. I don't dislike the head doctor, the other male doctors, or the male staff. It's the women I have an issue with. The female nurses, the staff, and sometimes the female doctors. Whenever I go to see Kevin for some reason, they always glare at me. Their stares are so intense, they could almost take my life. That's why I only go to Kevin's workplace when it's absolutely necessary. Well, I guess any wife would rarely visit her husband's workplace. But this time, it was an urgent and important matter, so I had no choice. I headed to the hospital with heavy steps. Upon entering the hospital, I contacted Kevin on his mobile phone. It was after consultation hours, but he seemed busy.
Sorry, please sit and wait in the lobby,
Kevin said in a hurried voice, making me feel his sense of urgency. With a sigh, I sat down on the sofa. Since it was after consultation hours, there were only a few people around. Sitting there, I stood out. And sure enough,
"Oh, aren't you Amanda, Dr. Smith's wife?"
a woman called out to me. My mood instantly dropped. No, not everyone is after Kevin and hostile towards me. Maybe she was just being friendly, I thought, forcing a smile as I turned to her.
"You still have that unsightly figure, I see."
I immediately regretted turning around. Yes, I took a direct hit right off the bat. The woman who called out to me appeared to be a nurse from her attire. She seemed to be in her late 20s or early 30s. I recognized her as someone who had worked at the hospital for a long time. I also knew she was one of the women who had a crush on Kevin. Every year, she sends him extravagant Valentine's Day cakes. Thanks to her, I never lose weight. With her sleek short hair and sharp eyes, she glared at me. A forced smile plastered. Her face twisted awkwardly.
"What are you doing here? Are you sick? We don't do cosmetic surgery here, you know?"
"Oh, no, my husband asked me to bring some documents." In such cases, ignoring the sarcasm is best, and as I stated my purpose, she reached out her hand.
"Then I'll hand it over to Dr. Smith. But it's an important document, so I'd like to give it to him directly." "He is busy. I'll make sure he gets it, so go home."
Wow, she told me to go home. I've met many people, but it's rare to encounter someone who shows such direct hostility. While I was troubled, a senior nurse, Melissa, who I recognized, came running over.
"Lisa, what's going on? Something with Dr. Smith's wife?"
The nurse whose name I didn't know until now was Lisa. Judging by this scene, she seemed quite serious about Kevin. Lisa, unable to stand up to Melissa.
"No, nothing,"
mumbled and quickly left.
"That was scary,"
I muttered involuntarily.
"I'm sorry. She's obsessed with Dr. Smith,"
Melissa said with a troubled look. Oh, I already knew that without being told.
"And Lisa, she's turning 30 this year." "Oh, really? That's why she seems so desperate."
I don't care about that kind of thing. It's a hospital, there are people around, and I'm an adult, so I don't shout. But in my mind, I screamed loudly. I understand the feeling of being desperate at 30, but does that mean you go after someone else's husband? Just find a single, available guy. After that,
Sorry.
Kevin came running over, but my anger didn't subside. I decided never to go to Kevin's workplace again, no matter what. A few days after making that decision,
"Sorry, I forgot my documents again."
when I got that call, my mobile phone made a weird sound, which was not just my imagination. "Kevin, check your stuff before you leave the house." "Oh, you're still tired from yesterday's surgery?" Hearing that, I can't stay mad. And so easily.
"My decision not to go to his workplace is overturned."
Decision was overturned.
"Hello. I'm Dr. Smith's wife. Is Dr. Smith here?"
Today, it's busy because it's consultation hours. I thought I should go through reception, and a man responded, so I felt relieved. Even the female medical clerks are often after Kevin. There are many women like Melissa who aren't interested at all and many married women, but for some reason, those who help are often women who are after Kevin. So, I tend to choose male staff. Please wait a moment. While waiting, choosing only men, how ugly. I heard a voice. Instantly, I felt unpleasant. Why? Because I recognized that voice. It was the voice I heard just a few days ago. Ignoring it is the best. Hey, you fatso, can't you hear me? So I stayed quiet. Looking around, I couldn't find any plump women. Realizing they were talking about me, I let out a deep sigh. Still staying quiet.
Are you listening? You shameless woman!
Then, I was grabbed by the shoulder. I felt disgusted.
It hurts. Please let go.
I said calmly, trying to keep the peace.
It's because you're ignoring me.
She said. Is this hospital okay, having such rude nurses? Is it okay for them to behave like this in front of other patients? After all, it's the hospital where Kevin works. I want to avoid bad reputations for his sake. So, I wanted to handle it peacefully, but 30-year-old Lisa forcibly turned me around. What met my eyes was Lisa's angry face. And for some reason, there were several civilians next to her. Well, since they came to the hospital, they must be patients or their companions. The common point of the casually dressed people was that they were all women. Young ones, some older than me, a diverse age range. Instinctively getting ready for something, Lisa said.
You should stop relying on Dr. Smith. Huh.
I wondered what she was talking about, dependency? I always thought of marriage as a partnership rather than dependency, but if she says so, maybe it is? But no, that doesn't feel right. As I was tilting my head.
Yeah, that's right.
The woman next to Lisa said. What on earth is happening?
I saw you. You were looking around at the reception area, and then you went out of your way to talk to a male staff member. What are you doing, trying to flirt while being married to Dr. Smith?
Wait, is that how they see me?
Does your husband, Dr. Smith, know you're such a man-crazy woman? Man-crazy!
I couldn't help but shout. Just talking to a male staff member makes me man-crazy?
I know! You purposely take documents from the doctor's bag and come here to show them off to us.
It's terrifying to be accused of something that isn't true.
It's weird. How could such a wonderful person marry someone like you? Did you lie to Dr. Smith and get him to marry you out of pity? No. I didn't do anything like that.
I wanted to explain how Kevin and I met, but it didn't seem like they were willing to listen.
Dr. Smith is too kind to say it, but I bet he's really troubled by you.
It was Lisa who said that. Troubled. I was bewildered.
Exactly. Let me tell you, Dr. Smith deserves someone better. You are not wanted.
Lisa pointed her finger at me so fiercely that I nearly went cross-eyed.
For example, someone like me, an excellent nurse.
Lisa said with an arrogant look. Is this person seriously delusional? At this point, it's almost funny. But laughing would probably make things worse, so I looked down and tried to hold it in. Thinking I was intimidated and didn't realize I was holding back laughter, Lisa and the patients started insulting me again. It's impressive, really. She's involving the patients just to get rid of me. As if to deliver the final blow, Lisa said.
Just get divorced already, you fat, ugly woman.
And at that moment, something snapped inside me. Not physically, but mentally.
Fat, ugly. That's right. You're so disgracefully overweight.
That's because.
Just hurry up and divorce him.
And give him to me. At the moment I heard Lisa's voice, something inside me snapped again.
That's because you keep making those huge chocolate cakes.
I snapped. I finally lost it. I couldn't take it anymore. But this is a hospital, and there are many patients around. Screaming and shouting here would look bad. So, I did my best to suppress my anger and stay calm. Fortunately, my outburst had made them quiet. I cleared my throat and lowered my voice so only.
If you don't stop, the spirits lurking in this hospital will get angry.
They could hear. The moment I said that, Lisa, who was about to retort, froze with her mouth open.
What are you talking about?
She couldn't respond strongly, probably because of the association of hospitals with ghosts. This tactic seemed effective. By the way, Kevin said he's never seen a ghost. But,
you know this hospital is very old, right?
When I asked, Lisa nodded silently. Yes, the current building was rebuilt not too long ago, but the hospital itself has a very long history. It has been around since before the war, or so they say. Before it was rebuilt, there were even ghost stories about the old building. Maybe Lisa knows about that, because she looked pale. Maybe she's seen something? I thought with a sly smile as I spoke.
This hospital has been here since before the war. That means a lot of lives have been lost here. What does that matter? It's only been a few years since we rebuilt. That's true. But there's no such thing as new or old when it comes to souls. Huh?
Speaking in a low voice while looking down seemed to enhance the atmosphere. Lisa and the surrounding patients were leaning in, listening intently to my story.
In fact, you might think I'm just a housewife, but I'm also a medium. What?
It's a lie, though. In reality, I've never seen a ghost in my life, nor have I had any experiences that might hint at one. I have 0 paranormal experiences. But I was in the drama club back in high school, so I'm quite confident in my acting skills.
Spirits are everywhere.
Saying this in a low, raspy voice, Lisa and the patients quickly turned pale.
Stop talking nonsense! I have some psychic ability too, and there's no way there are any ghosts in this hospital. It's rare to find a place this clean.
One of the patients started saying. But I just gave another sly smile. So, what do you call that behind you then? Suddenly,
you can see it.
That person turned pale. I said something random, but it seems to have added some credibility. Lucky me. The woman claiming to have psychic abilities was at a loss for words, and the atmosphere in the room became tense. Laughing inwardly, I continued to speak.
Actually, there are multiple spirits attached to my husband. What? I can't see any of that. Then your psychic abilities must be limited. I have been exorcising them for years. But as long as Dr. Smith continues to work here, they just keep coming. No way!
Lisa and the patients were speechless.
Just as you all say, Dr. Smith is a wonderful person. He has been by the side of patients who couldn't be helped, and as a result, even spirits have grown fond of him. That's why I've always been by Dr. Smith's side, protecting him. It's something only I can do.
Looking at Lisa and the patients, they were all visibly shaken. Now for the finishing blow, I turned to Lisa.
By the way, Lisa, you called me a man chaser, but aren't you the one who's really after men? What did you say?
Her face was one of surprise at my sudden statement. Now it was my turn to point my finger right at her face. Watching her eyes go cross-eyed, I continued.
You have quite a few spirits attached to you. What? Maybe you're desperate to get married, but haven't you been inviting men indiscriminately? It's not just male spirits, there are female ones too. Have you been hitting on men who are already taken? I haven't done anything like that.
She denied it, but her eyes were shaking. I said it off the top of my head, but it seems she really has been approaching various men. In fact, Melissa had told me a bit about her. Apparently, she's been desperate to get married and has been hitting on men, causing some trouble. She even made advances on a married man, and his wife came storming in angrily. I don't know if persistence pays off, but despite claiming to be in love with my Dr. Smith, she's been coming on to anyone and everyone. It's ridiculous. And now, she's come to get rid of me to target Kevin, the real prize. Too bad for her.
Whether or not I have spirits attached to me, I love my husband. I'm sure I love him more than anyone else here.
That part is true. That's one thing I know I won't lose. That's why I can look Lisa and the patients in the eye with strong, confident eyes and a firm voice. Perhaps overwhelmed by my determined gaze. The patients began to murmur. Well, if that's the case. And they backed down. Even if the doctor is handsome, I can't handle ghosts.
Wait a minute. I don't believe in such nonsense.
However, Lisa, desperate as she was, did not give up easily. I looked at her.
Lisa, if you don't go for a spiritual cleansing soon, that shoulder pain won't go away. What?
Lisa stiffened at my words.
What are you talking about?
Well, being a nurse is a tough job, and it's normal for your shoulders to feel heavy. Especially when you're almost 30. I just said it randomly, but it seems to have hit the mark.
Your right shoulder looks particularly dark. Do you remember a man with glasses? Glasses!
There are countless men with glasses in this world, but Lisa's face turned pale. Looking up at her. He's saying he won't forgive you. I said in a low voice.
Help me!
She screamed, startling me.
No!
Crying, Lisa ran away. The surprised patients looked at me as if they had seen something terrifying and then scattered. Good grief. My shoulders are stiff. Just as I was stretching.
Did something happen?
Kevin came over with a puzzled look, so I smiled and said,
Nothing at all.
And handed him the documents. After that, it seems Lisa quit the hospital. According to Melissa, every night, the men she approached and their girlfriends or wives appear in her dreams. She said with a vacant look. She left with dark circles under her eyes and looking emaciated. She complained that even after many spiritual cleansings, it didn't help and then disappeared somewhere. I thought it was scary how strong beliefs can be, even though I caused it myself. Well, her strong belief made her think she was the one suitable for Kevin and pushed me to divorce him. That's the sin of targeting someone else's husband, it's her own fault. There were some rumors about ghosts in the hospital, but since hospitals generally have that image, the rumors quickly died down. By the way, among the women targeting Kevin, his popularity increased even more because he was seen as a man popular even with ghosts. But it seems I'm the only one who can spend a lifetime with such a popular man, maybe because I'm a medium? The next year's Valentine's gifts were mostly small, so it looks like I'll finally be able to diet. When I told Kevin that,
It doesn't matter what shape you're in, Amanda. I love you for who you are.
He said handsomely, and needless to say, I fell for him all over again.
What are you doing? Stop it!
My son Michael shook off my arm and ran into the yard. In the yard, there were several fist-sized stones scattered around, thrown by my mother-in-law Sarah out of spite. They had piled up in the corner of the yard like a small mountain, making it difficult to deal with. To a hungry Michael, I wondered what those stones looked like. He picked one up and was about to put it in his mouth. Panicking, I staggered to my feet to stop him. I hadn't eaten properly in days, so I was weak. I had no husband. He had passed away in a car accident, and since then, I had no income and lived in poverty. Even if I wanted to work, my frail body couldn't handle a regular job. But now, Michael's well-being was more important than mine. I had to hurry, or Michael would eat the stone. I cursed my own helplessness. It was my fault that Michael was so hungry that he was about to eat a stone. It was my fault. I felt inadequate as a mom. Overwhelmed with guilt, frustration, and sadness, tears flowed uncontrollably.
Stop, please. Please stop.
I desperately grabbed his hand. But to my shock, Michael's eyes sparkled as he happily ate the stone.
Mom, this is delicious.
I couldn't believe my eyes. My name is Jennifer. I live with my young son Michael.
Mom, look. A dandelion.
Michael smiled happily, pointing to a dandelion blooming in the park. Michael turned 4 this year, and he would soon be starting preschool. I dreaded it. There were fees for enrollment, supplies needed for preschool, and other various expenses, but I had no income. Normally, people would work, but my weak body made it difficult for me to do so. Besides, there was no one to watch Michael while I worked. As I watched Michael play on the park slide, I wondered what I should do. My husband Joseph had died in a car accident last year. I remember it clearly, just like today, with the sun shining down. We were out shopping as a family, with Michael in a stroller. After finishing our shopping, we walked a bit and reached a crosswalk. The light turned green, and as we were crossing, a car came speeding towards us.
Get out of the way!
He pushed me and the stroller with Michael out of the way. The car screeched to a halt, and the scene quickly became chaotic. Someone called an ambulance, and Joseph, who was unconscious, was rushed away with sirens blaring. I waited, praying, but he never came back to us. The police investigation revealed that the driver had run a red light. Michael probably didn't understand that his dad was gone. His eyes looking up at me made my heart ache. I have to raise Michael properly. I swore to myself as I looked at Joseph's photo. But the reality was that we were barely getting by on the money Joseph had saved. I had considered applying for welfare, but because we had savings and owned a home, I was turned down. The caseworker.
You're still young and able to work, so stop relying on others.
Coldly told me. Sarah, my mother-in-law, had been hostile towards me since Joseph's death.
This happened because you were daydreaming.
Other relatives sided with me, saying it was clearly the fault of the driver who ignored the traffic light. But Sarah blamed me and Michael, as Joseph had died protecting us, making us the villains in her eyes. I couldn't deny that thought either. I kept thinking if only I had checked for safety more thoroughly or spent a little longer shopping. Sometimes I even regretted going out that day.
Apologize to Joseph.
I'm sorry. I am truly sorry. For several months after Joseph died, she came every month on the anniversary of his death, demanding apologies from Michael and me. But after half a year, she started throwing stones at us.
I hate you.
She would scream and throw stones from her house. Our house was next to Sarah's, and she would throw fist-sized stones from her yard. When I went outside to ask her to stop, she threw more stones. Some of them were aimed directly at me, and if I didn't dodge, they'd hit my face or body.
Sarah, stop it. It hurts.
Instinctively, I raised my hand to protect my face, and a sharp pain shot through me. A stone hit the back of my hand, and it started to bleed a little. I looked around. What if it had hit Michael? But fortunately, he wasn't playing outside today. Relieved, I sighed deeply. The stone throwing had stopped, and there were various sizes of stones scattered in the yard. Michael and I picked them up one by one and piled them where they wouldn't be in the way. Before we knew it, the pile of stones was as tall as Michael. "This is a problem," I muttered while looking at the pile of stones. These days, I was down to 2 meals a day to save money, trying to ignore my growling stomach. I had to find a way out of this poverty. If I could get even a small income, I could save some money. Checking the dwindling balance of my bank account, I hoped it would ease my anxiety a bit. Another problem was Sarah. For some reason, she kept throwing stones at us, always near the end of the month. Obviously, she hated us, but it was excessive. Michael hadn't been hit yet, but who knows when he might get hurt. I wanted her to stop, but going to talk to her only made her throw more stones. She wouldn't listen to me. Going out to face her was like becoming a target on purpose. If only there was someone to mediate. One day, while I was thinking about this, Michael said,
"Hey, what about Thomas?"
"Thomas? Who's that?"
"Thomas, we found an elephant by the river together,"
Michael said, but I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought it must be an imaginary friend. Children's imagination is so endearing, I thought, and I ignored it. But a few days later, I remembered Joseph's friend, Thomas. A few months before Joseph died, we had gone to the zoo together. Thomas loved children and had given Michael a piggyback ride while they chatted in the elephant area. There was a small water area for the elephants to drink from, and Michael had called it a river. Michael's words, not knowing the difference between a river and a water trough, had made us all laugh.
"That's it, maybe I should consult Thomas."
I felt hesitant to ask, but I had no one else to turn to. Summoning my courage, I sent him a text. A few weeks later, Michael, Thomas, and I met at a restaurant. It was the first time I had seen Thomas since Joseph's funeral. I was surprised. "I never expected to hear from you, Jennifer." He was dressed in white pants and a black shirt, smiling as he spoke. The last time we met, his hair was straight, but today it was permed.
"Thank you for taking the time to meet me."
"No problem." "Michael, order whatever you like."
"Really? Then I'll have this, and this."
He opened the menu on the table and pointed at various items without much thought. Thomas chuckled. "How about this one?" and suggested. He pointed to a large parfait with brownies, chocolate ice cream, whipped cream, and lots of chocolate syrup, which made Michael's eyes light up.
"Oh, I want this."
"Wait, Michael, stop it." I hurriedly tried to stop him, but Thomas had already placed the order. "It's okay, I'll pay for it." I felt overwhelmed with embarrassment and wished I could disappear. As we chatted about recent events, the chocolate parfait was brought to Michael. After receiving it, Thomas looked at me and said,
"So, you have something you want to discuss?"
His slightly guarded posture made me feel a bit uneasy, but I started talking about Sarah. Meanwhile, Michael was eating the parfait, getting chocolate all around his mouth. When I finished, Thomas looked thoughtful. "I see, that is indeed puzzling."
"I really want to know how to make her stop. Can you help me?"
"I do know Joseph's mom, but I'm not sure." His reluctant expression was as expected. After all, no one wants to get involved in someone else's family issues. If things went wrong, he could get caught up in it too. But I couldn't back down now.
"I have no one else to turn to. Please help me."
Thomas folded his arms in thought for a moment. Then, Michael, holding a spoon,
"Please,"
said. He probably didn't understand the situation, just imitating me. But he looked at Thomas with a serious expression. After a moment of silence, Thomas started laughing. "Michael, you look a lot like Joseph." I was taken aback by the sudden remark.
Well, people often say that.
Seeing Michael reminded me of how Joseph helped me once. Thomas recounted a time when he and Joseph worked at the same company and a big deal went wrong. Thomas had planned to resign and report to his boss. But to his surprise, his boss already knew about it and didn't think it was Thomas's fault. I found out later that Joseph had stood up for me. Joseph had good performance and was close to the boss, so there was no problem. He was a kind person to everyone. I still haven't repaid that kindness. Thomas looked at me with a determined expression. Jennifer, to repay Michael, I will help you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
No thanks needed. Thomas didn't live near us, so he agreed to check in occasionally. He also wanted to visit on the monthly anniversary to see how Sarah was doing. We planned to confront her if needed. Since then, I occasionally saw Thomas walking around our neighborhood. For some reason, he wore a black hat and sunglasses, looking a bit suspicious. I thought it might be better to stop, but since he seemed so serious, I left it unsaid. A week had passed since Thomas started investigating, but there was no progress. On the contrary, Thomas said Sarah didn't even seem to notice his presence. Sarah always left early in the morning, returned briefly during the day, and then went out again. She came home at 9 p.m., and the lights went out shortly after. I'll keep watching for a while longer. Wearing his usual black hat, he seemed enthusiastic. However, after a few weeks, there was no contact from him.
What's happened to Thomas?
During that time, I looked for jobs with daycare or browsed brochures for vocational training. But none of them seemed doable for me, and I could only sigh. I managed to scrape by selling baby clothes, miscellaneous items, and picture books on local buy and sell groups. Even so, my bank account balance kept decreasing and life got tougher. Eventually, I reduced myself to 1 meal a day, and Michael to 2. Even those meals were quite small, so Michael always asked for snacks.
Mom, can I have some candy?
I'm sorry, we don't have any candy. I always apologized, as we couldn't afford to buy any. We went to the park to distract ourselves from hunger. But without proper meals, we quickly grew tired and had to return home. We started going out less and less. I'm hungry, Mom. In the dimly lit room in the evening, Michael murmured. He had already eaten lunch, so there was nothing left for dinner. With no money, I couldn't go grocery shopping either. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I hugged Michael tightly. All I could do was apologize. At that moment, Michael broke free from my arms and ran into the yard.
No! I'm hungry!
For some reason, he picked up a stone and put it in his mouth.
What are you doing? Stop it!
I hurried to stop him, feeling dizzy from lack of food. Having not eaten properly for days, I had no strength, but I had to act quickly to prevent Michael from eating the stone. I cursed my own helplessness. I had let Michael get so hungry that he was trying to eat a stone. It was my fault. I was failing as a mom. Overwhelmed with guilt, regret, and sadness, I couldn't stop crying.
Please, stop it, Michael! Please stop!
I desperately grabbed his hand, but I saw something unbelievable. Michael was eating the stone as if it were delicious.
Mom, this is chocolate. It's really good.
Looking closer, all the stones were actually made of chocolate, crafted to look like real stones. I picked up one and took a bite. It was indeed chocolate. I checked the pile of stones in the corner of the yard and found they were all chocolate.
This is unbelievable.
It's like something out of a fairy tale, having a yard full of edible stones. Michael kept reaching for more, getting chocolate all over his mouth. I went back inside to get a basket. No matter what, I couldn't let the neighbors see us eating stones in the yard. Michael and I filled the basket with chocolate stones and decided to eat inside.
Still, what on earth is going on?
It was hard to believe Sarah had been throwing chocolate. Could there be poison in them? I wondered with a sinking feeling. But so far, both Michael and I felt fine. While thinking, my mobile phone suddenly rang. It was Thomas. I quickly grabbed my mobile phone and answered.
Hello, Thomas. It's terrible. The stone is chocolate, and Michael is eating it, and then…
I ended up speaking rapidly, but Thomas remained calm. Calm down. I understand the situation.
What do you mean?
Let me explain step by step. Sarah, actually. When I listened to Thomas's story in detail, it was as follows. Sarah was working 2 part-time jobs every day, from early morning until late at night. She would finish her morning job and come home around noon. Then, after having lunch and changing clothes, she would work at a call center in the afternoon, returning home at 9 p.m. She has been living this way for a year now. I was surprised that Sarah was as tough as Joseph. Being able to handle 2 jobs without breaking down means she is blessed with good health.
But why is Sarah working part-time jobs?
I asked her that too.
You talked to her directly?
No, actually, she noticed me while I was tailing her. Although I couldn't see his face over the phone, I could tell from his voice that he was giving a wry smile. If a man in a black hat and sunglasses was following me, I would think he was suspicious too. It wasn't surprising that she noticed, so I wasn't that shocked. Sarah apparently caught Thomas, who was following her to her workplace, by waiting for him instead. I was amazed by her guts, but even more so by the fact that she questioned Thomas further. Thomas managed to evade Sarah's questions while gathering recent information from her. I decided to talk to Sarah at a cafe near her workplace. After entering the cafe, he began.
Why are you working 2 jobs? It doesn't look like you're struggling financially.
At that time, Sarah was dressed nicely, wearing makeup, and her hair was well-groomed. Sarah replied in a murmured voice. It's not for myself. I can manage my own life.
Then why?
Sarah hesitated to answer that question. After a while, she said reluctantly, It's for Jennifer. She can't work because of her health, so I'm working instead of her. Apparently, Sarah has been working and even opened a bank account to save money for us. Thomas was surprised by her answer.
What, for a year? Does Jennifer know about this?
Probably not.
But Michael will need more money from now on, right? I just want to help a little.
It was hard to believe that she would say such a thing. However, the story still didn't connect. Throwing stone-like chocolates seemed unrelated to her motive. I urged him to continue. Thomas, thinking the same, asked her hesitantly.
But, according to Jennifer, you have been throwing stones into the house.
When he said that, Sarah looked sad. She apologized and said, I feel bad for her. But it can't be helped.
What do you mean?
It's sadness. I don't know where to direct the sadness of losing Joseph.
So, are you treating Jennifer coldly and throwing stones to distract from your sadness?
Sarah replied, Yes. His words. According to Thomas, it seemed she hadn't accepted Joseph's death. Indeed, as a mom, the grief of losing a beloved son is unimaginable. I can't help but feel my heart break at the thought of Michael passing away before me.
Joseph chose her, so how could I not love the woman he loved?
However, she couldn't let go of the belief that it wasn't the driver who took Joseph's life, but her.
I'm stubborn about strange things. So, the main reason for throwing stones at them was hate, wasn't it?
Hate?
Of course, that's part of it. But I didn't throw stones. Those were just chocolates, she said coldly. Since Joseph passed away, Sarah noticed that Michael and I were visibly losing weight. So, Sarah bought chocolates that looked like stones and kept throwing them at us. The reason she did it towards the end of the month was simply because payday was near. I feel both hate and love for Jennifer and Michael. It's complicated. In the end, Sarah muttered sadly. That day, I left the shop after that. That's all I heard. I see. Thank you very much. I was still filled with disbelief. Sarah seemed to show hatred towards Michael and me, but deep down, she couldn't hate us completely. There's a word for this, love-hate. It might be that hating and loving are two sides of the same coin. Ironically, those feelings manifested in throwing chocolates at us. I looked at Michael, who was eating chocolate right next to me. The basket that had been full was now half empty. It became clear that Sarah hated and resented us, but at the same time, she gave us chocolates out of goodwill. However, I was confused about whether it was right to continue such a complicated relationship. Couldn't we somehow repair this relationship? It's not really my place to say this. Thomas took a breath and said, How about we arrange a meeting for Jennifer and Sarah to reconcile? I was genuinely surprised and felt apologetic. No, really. This is our problem. But it hasn't worked out so far, has it? Maybe it will change if someone mediates. But we're already involved. Leave it to me. Thanks to Thomas, Sarah and I met a few days later. The place was our usual restaurant. At first, there was an awkward atmosphere, and neither Sarah nor I could make eye contact. Thomas told me everything. When I said that, Sarah seemed to understand everything in that one sentence. I see. And replied without looking at me. Joseph isn't coming back. I understand that you're sad. Do you? But wouldn't Joseph be sad if we were still at odds? Sarah was surprised by my words. Until then, she hadn't made eye contact, but now she was looking straight at me. Sarah, let's end this complicated relationship. I looked back firmly, appealing to her. Neither of us said anything for a while, but finally, Sarah relaxed and said, Yes, I was thinking the same thing. Sarah bowed deeply and apologized for everything that had happened. I'm sorry for being so harsh. I won't do it again. And so, Sarah and I reconciled. Naturally, I was very happy and filled with joy. It's not just that I no longer have to worry about being pelted with stones or shouted at. There is a glimmer of hope that, while it may not be the same as before, I can rebuild my relationship with Sarah. Today marks about half a year since then. My relationship with Sarah has significantly improved. Of course, there are no more piles of chocolate in the yard. Around that time, I was given the opportunity to work as a housekeeper. After that discussion, Thomas approached me. We have an opening for a housekeeper. Would you be interested? He said. My new business is taking off, and I've been neglecting household chores. Naturally, you will be compensated. Well, I can handle household chores, I replied. You don't have to come every day. You can work around your health, maybe 3 days a week. Having been ill for a long time and only having done housework as a housewife, I was confident in my ability to handle household chores. Since he mentioned I could work around my health, I decided to take the job. His house was so large it could be called a mansion, and there were 2 other housekeepers besides me. It turned out that my skills were superior to the others, and they praised me highly. Following their recommendation, I registered with a housekeeper dispatch agency and took on jobs within my limits, where I was also highly evaluated.
People appreciated my pre-made dishes and how I organized the living room storage to make it easier to use. I started getting more requests, but since I was also working for Thomas, my availability was limited. Additionally, I had to consider my health, making it difficult to work regularly. Due to this, I was known as a unique person. Before I knew it, I had become a legendary housekeeper. Thomas was also pleased, saying he could focus more on his work than ever before. He mentioned that the bookshelf I organized was easier to view and the information more accessible. When my abilities were praised like this, it made me happy but also a bit embarrassed. My work became steady, and I was able to earn a stable income. Thanks to this, I could provide Michael with delicious meals. Naturally, I also had more opportunities to invite Sarah over for meals. Because of this, Michael has become very attached to Grandma lately.
Grandma, look. It's a car,
he said, holding a toy car Sarah had bought for him a while ago, playing together with me. Sarah,
I don't understand,
she said, narrowing her eyes happily as she watched Michael. I wonder if Joseph is watching us from heaven. I believe that he is surely watching this happy scene with a smile. When did we start to go wrong? Please give it back to me. I didn't even have the energy to head to the bedroom, so I quietly fell asleep on the living room sofa that day. A few days later, my daughter's husband, David, came to visit me before heading to work.
It's almost over,
he said, and left for his job. His unusually strong tone made me feel uneasy, but I didn't think much about it. That night, my husband, John, came home and headed straight to the bathroom without even saying I'm home. I no longer felt anything about his cold behavior. Even though our relationship had grown so cold, we had no choice but to sleep in the same room due to the house layout. I quietly entered the bedroom after John had fallen asleep. However, I couldn't fall asleep even with my eyes closed. I kept tossing and turning, unable to sleep, and soon the clock struck 1 a.m. At that moment, I felt someone else's presence in the room. With my heart pounding, I opened my eyes to see David standing there.
Why?
Ignoring my question, David pulled me out of bed and forcefully pushed me into the closet. He then entered and closed the door just enough to see the room.
What's going on?
Shoo. David silenced me with one hand, and I involuntarily fell silent under his pressure. He continued to observe the room through the crack in the door.
It's almost time.
I had no idea what we were waiting for, but I reluctantly followed his lead. A few minutes later, it happened.
What?
I gasped at the obvious and eerie change in the bedroom, and I could do nothing but watch. People prefer happy endings over bad ones. An ending where no one is missing, and everyone is smiling happily. But does such a story even exist? Isn't someone's happiness always accompanied by someone else's misfortune? This is the story of my happy ending. Happy birthday, Mom. I am Jennifer. I am turning 57 this year. At this age, I usually wouldn't remember my own birthday, but my daughter, Ashley, always celebrates it so diligently that I remember. This year, she gave me a beautiful fountain pen that I can use as a full-time employee. Last year, it was a wallet, I think.
This is from me. Happy birthday.
Ashley, who has grown up to be so kind, has a husband. His name is David, a former colleague of her. He is a quiet person, often lost in thought. When he was first introduced as her boyfriend, I was honestly a bit worried. But as I saw the kindness in his eyes towards Ashley and how he could be considerate of others, I gradually felt relieved. Even now, though he still seems a bit absent-minded, the gift he handed me was carefully wrapped, and inside was a beautiful scarf. He has good manners and is very kind to us as well. I am happy to be surrounded by such wonderful people.
Thank you, both of you. I'll cherish it.
Thank you. By the way, we also got a cake, so let's eat it soon.
I'll cut it.
Thanks. Mom, please sit here. The cake was neatly divided into 4 pieces. Yes, we are not just a family of 3. As David was serving the cake onto plates, the living room door opened.
Hey! You guys are so noisy.
John. Welcome home. Today is Mom's birthday.
Oh, I see. Is there a piece of cake for me too?
Yes. Here you go.
Okay, then now be quiet from now on. I'm going to bed soon.
When David handed John the cake, John took it without even glancing at me or Ashley, and he went straight to the bedroom.
What's that? He didn't even say happy birthday to Mom. Oh well, it's been like this for years. I don't let it bother me anymore.
John used to be a very kind person. We promised each other that we would be good parents, and then we had Ashley. At first, John seemed to be trying to be a good father. When Ashley cried, he was the first to run to her, even before me, and he brought home new toys for her almost every day. But parenting, for better or worse, is something that takes up a lot of time. He gradually began to prioritize his own desires over spending time with her. As a result, young Ashley became less attached to John. Maybe because he didn't like that, he started avoiding time with her even more, eventually only coming home to sleep. No matter how sick Ashley or I got, John was indifferent, and it felt like the emotional distance between us was growing. By the time Ashley entered elementary school, John was contributing less financially, and I had to work hard to support us. But in recent years, his behavior and the reduction in money have been abnormal, and I've sensed something is off. Coming home late every day, our savings drastically decreasing, the smell of a perfume he never usually wore. He's probably having an affair. Or maybe he's gotten involved with some nightclub or something. Well, either way, it doesn't matter. It's definitely beyond what I can forgive. But he hides it so cleverly that I haven't been able to catch any definitive evidence, and the days have just passed by ambiguously. I'm sorry, Mom.
It's okay, it's not your fault. I see. If anything happens, let me know. We should probably get going now.
Thank you for having us.
Take care.
I escorted the 2 of them to the door and sighed softly. Ashley and I now live in separate houses on the same property. David, who had no other family, came to live with us as our adopted son-in-law, and given John's situation, we decided to build another house on our property. Even so, we still have dinner together in this house, and I spend more time with David than I do with John. With how much time we spend together, it feels like building a separate house wasn't necessary, I thought. To me, they are family, and I plan to keep the 3 of us together in some way. However, that life didn't last forever. One evening, I finished work early for once and was driving home when I got a call from David.
Jennifer! Ashley! She's been in an accident. What? She was hit by a truck. I was at work, but the hospital called. I'm heading there now. Wait a minute!
David, usually so absent-minded, spoke with a speed I couldn't believe, and the call ended abruptly. What? Ashley had an accident? How? Is she okay? I was half panicked, but quickly changed the car's direction toward the hospital. I need to call John. Even though he usually showed no interest in us, this was an emergency involving his daughter, so I thought he'd rush over immediately. But the impersonal ringing of the call echoed in the car, but it never stopped. No matter how many times I tried, he never picked up. It was as if he didn't care about us at all. I even called his workplace, but they said he had already left for the day. Even though John was supposed to be off work, he didn't answer his phone. I couldn't understand how he could be unreachable during our daughter's crisis. But when I saw Ashley's changed appearance at the hospital, nothing else seemed to matter anymore. This is Ashley, right? Is it really her? The hospital staff led me to a cold room, not a waiting room or treatment room, but a space with several somethings covered in white cloth. One of those cloths was pulled back, and David was standing beside it. It was unmistakably a human being. The skin had red and black cuts, black hair. But it was no longer in a human shape. The horrific sight made me feel dizzy. David caught me as I almost fell. She tried to save a child from getting hit. It's just like her, so brave. David's hands were cold, and his voice was mixed with a painful laugh, filled with deep sorrow. The half of the face that remained was still beautiful, unmistakably hers. But a glance elsewhere revealed the absence of what should be there. As the officer calmly explained the situation, I started crying uncontrollably.
Why Ashley? She did nothing wrong. Why take her from me?
I was so distressed that I wasn't sure what I was saying. I just couldn't stop. If I didn't let out all my tears and feelings, I felt like I would cease to exist as myself. David held me gently, his face twisted with regret. He sniffled occasionally too. Seeing Ashley's husband, much younger than me, trying so hard made me wonder what I should do from now on. It all felt meaningless. The following events passed by in a blur. The police investigation confirmed it was an accident, not a crime, and Ashley was hailed as a hero for saving a child. The funeral was crowded with people, a testament to how loved she was. As her mother, I felt a bit of pride. David seemed to feel the same, showing a slightly proud expression. However, John never contacted us during the funeral. I told him everything only after it was all over. I called you many times. He entered silently through the front door, and I spoke to him. I rarely initiated conversations with him, so he looked a bit surprised. There were traces of bright red lipstick around his mouth, which disgusted me.
Oh, what did you want?
Where were you?
I was at work. Don't answer a question with a question. So, what did you need?
I called his workplace again, but they told me he had been on paid leave for several days. Work. Give me a break. But I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. Ashley was in a car accident. We had her funeral yesterday.
I see, that's unfortunate.
It felt like a punch to the head. What kind of father reacts to his daughter's accident as if it were someone else's problem? No sign of sadness or pain. Aren't you more upset? Yes, it's very unfortunate. So, where were you during our daughter's emergency?
I told you, at work. It's unfortunate about Ashley, but I was working, so what could I do? Don't make me repeat myself.
John spoke with slight irritation and then disappeared into the bedroom. I clenched my hands on my lap. I was angry. Angry at John, who seemed unfazed by Ashley's death. And angry at myself for not being able to say anything back to him. Why did this happen? Where did we go wrong? Give her back. Tonight, I didn't even have the strength to head to the bedroom, and feeling overwhelmed by a mix of negative emotions, I quietly fell asleep on the living room sofa. Since then, the days John comes home have noticeably decreased. Today too, it's just David and me saying grace at the dinner table. The table, full of empty seats, lacks any smiles. Loneliness has taken permanent residence, and a heavy atmosphere hangs over everything. Since then, I haven't been able to focus on anything, and I've taken an extended leave from work. Even at home, I do nothing but stare at Ashley's photo on the mantel. Seeing me like this, David has been helping out more with the chores. He frequently expresses his concern, but I can only respond with vague answers. I feel a bit guilty towards him, but I can't bring myself to think about anything right now. David often mutters to himself, as if talking to someone, but even that doesn't concern me. One day, David came to my house before work. He usually visits in the evening, as mornings are busy with preparations, so I wondered what was going on.
What's wrong? It's almost over.
Before I could ask what he meant, David gave a brief nod and left for work. His unusually firm tone made me feel a bit uneasy. I had no idea what he was talking about, but I assumed it was work-related and didn't think much more about it, spending another empty day. That evening, John came home for the first time in a while. Without even a word of greeting, he headed straight to the bathroom, and I felt nothing. Still, due to the layout of the house, we had to sleep in the same room. I entered the bedroom quietly after John had fallen asleep. But I couldn't drift off, tossing and turning restlessly. As the clock struck midnight, I felt a presence in the room. I opened my eyes nervously, only to see David standing there.
Why are you here?
Ignoring my question, David pulled me out of bed and forced me into the closet. He squeezed in too, closing the door just enough to keep the room in view. The closet was stifling with both of us crammed in, leaving little room to move.
What's going on?
Shoo. David silenced me with one hand, and I fell quiet under his pressure. He watched the room through the crack in the door.
It's almost time.
I had no idea what we were waiting for, but I mimicked him, peering through the door. The room started to fill with a white mist. The once stifling closet air turned icy. The mist gathered at John's pillow and began to take the form of a woman. What? I recognized the figure immediately. It was Ashley. Her image wasn't clear, but I knew it was her. As I nearly cried out, David clamped his hand over my mouth. Ashley was murmuring something by John's side, and he seemed to weaken in response. It looked like some sort of ritual to torment John. Watching, I felt short of breath and broke out in a cold sweat. After a while, Ashley stopped and vanished into thin air. I couldn't make sense of what had happened. John was no longer restless, but was drenched in sweat, confirming the reality of what I had seen. When I asked David for an explanation, he whispered, "Not here," and led me to the living room.
Hey, that was Ashley, right? Yes, it's Ashley. Or more precisely, something like Ashley's thoughts.
Thoughts?
Yes, when something is left undone in reality, it stays like that.
How do you know that?
I've been able to see things like that since I was a kid.
David has always had a strong intuition since he was a child, and he could see things that were usually invisible to others in everyday life. Because of this, he often felt exhausted during the day, and he apologized for his lack of cheerfulness, saying it was because of this. Ashley knew about this and was even more drawn to David after learning about it. I thought it was just like her. She was always a child full of curiosity.
I've always avoided people because I thought they would find me creepy for having this ability. But she accepted me for who I am. That's why I decided to stay by her side forever.
David looked nostalgically at an empty space again. There was nothing there, but I was sure Ashley was there, just invisible to me. I had never really believed in spirits, but after witnessing what I saw earlier, I couldn't help but believe.
When Ashley was gone, I couldn't sleep at all that night. But I felt her presence. I couldn't see her clearly yet, though.
I see.
But as the memorial service approached, she became more visible. Now I can even talk to her.
It turned out that when David occasionally talked to someone, it was her, who remained here as a spirit. Being able to talk to her again, even though she was supposed to be gone forever, was incredible. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't see Ashley's form. I envied his ability. Did Ashley say anything?
The first thing she did was apologize. She said she was sorry for leaving so suddenly.
I wanted to tell Ashley that she didn't need to apologize. She didn't do anything wrong. She protected our child. She was a hero.
She was very worried about Jennifer. She wanted her to recover quickly.
I couldn't possibly recover. She was my everything, my only family.
And she was very angry at John. She wanted to confront him today, which is why that happened. I'm sorry if it scared you.
I see, but why the closet?
Honestly, spirits and emotions are hard to understand. I was worried that Ashley's negative feelings might affect Jennifer.
I see. It did feel a bit suffocating. Did Ashley have anything to do with John coming back suddenly today?
Yes, she did something. I'm not sure exactly what.
David shrugged and said that spirits were mysterious. I had many feelings about John that I wanted to confront him about someday. Maybe now was the perfect chance. It was time to resolve this crumbling family situation. David, are you free tomorrow?
Huh? Oh, yes, I think so.
Let's end this. I want to talk to John properly. Can Ashley join us?
She's nodding and smiling. She might have a plan, but I'm not sure. That's reassuring. All right, let's get some sleep. Yes, oh, and Ashley really cared about Jennifer. So please, don't push yourself too hard. I understand. Good night.
David, probably with Ashley, went home. I didn't want to go back to the bedroom, so I lay down on the living room sofa. Unlike earlier, I quickly fell into a deep sleep. Even though the sofa wasn't comfortable, it was the best sleep I'd had in a long time. I woke up to the sound of birds chirping. Sunlight was streaming pleasantly through the gap in the curtains, and I thought it was a wonderfully peaceful morning. As I sat there for a while, lost in thought, I suddenly heard a scream followed by the sound of heavy footsteps running towards me.
Jennifer! It was my fault. I've been cheating. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
John burst into the living room and immediately started apologizing with great urgency. I was stunned by the suddenness of it all, but I guessed that he must have had a dream where Ashley said something to him.
Why did you do such a thing?
When Ashley was born, Jennifer, you were always just focused on Ashley.
So at first, I was just fooling around out of spite, but before I knew it. I'm really sorry now. I won't ever do it again. Ashley made me realize that. Let's start over as a married couple.
His voice sounded like he was about to cry. Seeing a grown man, who has brought his own misfortune upon himself, crying and wailing was pathetic.
It's too late now. Do you really think I could forgive a man who was cheating even during Ashley's last moments?
My voice came out much colder than I had expected. And John, surprised, shook his shoulders.
But originally, it was you who only paid attention to Ashley and never looked at me. It's not my fault, it's yours.
John raised his voice in desperation, making my body tense up slightly. At that moment, the front door opened and David walked in. John looked at him, or more precisely, at the empty space to his left, and started to tremble.
Oh, so you can see her, John. Ashley, it's not what you think. John didn't mean to disregard Ashley. He was just lonely. He wanted to attend your funeral, too.
John frantically tried to explain, but he was speaking to an empty space. Yet, Ashley must be there.
Ashley. She's really angry at you right now. For Jennifer.
I couldn't see anything, but John's panic spoke volumes. But such shallow words won't resonate.
The cheating! Jennifer never paid attention to me. It was Ashley who took Jennifer away from me in the first place. Why do I have to hear this from you?
A father should never say that his wife was taken away by his daughter. We promised to raise her together. And he broke that promise, shifting the blame to others and not understanding his own wrongdoing.
Jennifer, hurry up and forgive me. If you don't, I don't know what Ashley will do to me. Hurry, please.
Even in this situation, he's only thinking about saving himself, which is truly exasperating. Even David next to me looked fed up.
Look, Jennifer, I'm your husband, right? And Ashley, I'm her father. Let's talk it out, and you'll see, okay?
I'm exasperated. Why did I keep this relationship going with such a man? I should have realized his twisted thinking much earlier. But today, I can finally say goodbye to this vague daily life.
I no longer consider you my husband or Ashley's father. Disappear from my sight.
As I finished speaking forcefully, John's eyes widened and he hung his head. His eyes, void of light, stared at the floor as he mumbled something incomprehensible. I suddenly felt unsure of what had just happened and instinctively moved closer to John, but David stopped me, saying it was okay. I felt as if someone had embraced me from the front. Though only John, now devoid of will, stood before me. I instinctively felt it was Ashley. I can't see it, touch it, or hear it, but I know I'm being held right now. I feel warmth. I say thank you and hug back. I thought I heard a voice saying, "I'm sorry."
You don't have to apologize. Of course, I feel really lonely. But I'm happy to feel you one last time like this. Thank you so much for everything. Please be happy.
Her presence, that warmth, slowly faded away. Suddenly overcome by loneliness, I reached out desperately, but my hand grasped nothing but air.
No one can beat Jennifer. Ashley had the happiest face I've ever seen.
As a mother, I always thought there was more I could have done for her. But hearing David's words now, I felt relieved. If she was satisfied, that was enough for me. My regrets will stay with me until the grave. John hung his head and froze. After that, he was taken to a psychiatric hospital. Occasionally, he would regain lucidity, tremble in fear, and mumble something again. His unusual symptoms puzzled the doctors, but eventually, he was admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Even seeing John, who had become like an empty shell, didn't stir any feelings of sympathy in me. Because this is the binding love Ashley left him with.
Well, now that everything's done, I guess I'll get back to work.
Maybe this isn't really the end. Ashley is gone, and John is broken. From the outside, it might look like a bad ending. But my heart feels strangely clear. All the years of worry over John have ended. I was able to hold Ashley one last time. Having David, who is so kind, as a family to support me is wonderful. To me, this is a happy ending. I have no more regrets. I am still legally married to John. Honestly, I have no intention of taking care of him in the future, but due to disability benefits and the house deed, we haven't divorced. Even so, I feel a slight guilt, so I occasionally check on him. Well, it's a psychiatric hospital, so I can't visit him. He still spends his days in fear and apology, and the doctors say it will be a long time before he's discharged. I don't wish him unhappiness, but I want him to atone for his sins. David seemed a bit disappointed that Ashley's spirit was gone.
I can't see her anymore, but you seem so much brighter than before. I'm glad about that.
He is truly a nice man. We talked once about our future lives.
David, you don't have to worry about me anymore. You can live freely. You don't have to stay in this house. That's true, but if you're okay with it, I want to stay here. Why? Ashley always thanked you. She said it was thanks to Jennifer that she could do what she wanted and grow up straight in such an environment. Ashley didn't need to say that. No, I feel the same way as Ashley. You have an incredible capacity to accept others. Living in this house, I think of you as my real mother.
He said this while looking away, his ears a little red. He looked so much like my own son that I couldn't help but laugh. Though he looked dissatisfied, he started laughing with me. As our laughter echoed, a fresh breeze blew through the room. It was a very pleasant breeze, like Ashley's bright smile from the altar.
I came here today because I thought it might be the last time I see you. The last time?
I tilted my head in confusion, and my daughter Lisa gave me a nasty grin. She took a slow, deliberate breath, then proclaimed loudly,
I'm getting married. You won't see your grandchild, and I don't want anything to do with you from now on. We're cutting ties.
How could this be happening? A surprise wedding announcement and a declaration of estrangement. I was so shocked that my true feelings slipped out.
That's fine with me. Good riddance.
Lisa's eyes widened, and she blinked rapidly. She hadn't expected that response.
What? Why?
Why?
You're the one who brought it up first.
There's a limit to how much a parent can love their child unconditionally. After being bombarded with harsh words every day, it's impossible to keep loving. But Lisa doesn't understand that. She thinks I will always love her no matter what. That's simply not possible. And above all, I could never forgive Lisa for what she did as a wife who was cheated on. I'm Kristen, 37 years old. I've never had much luck in love and hadn't even come close to getting married until now. I envied my friends who looked happy in their marriages, but I didn't think marriage was something to force. I figured if a good match came along, that would be nice. Then I met Joshua. Joshua worked for the cleaning service that came to my apparel company. He was simple, not conventionally handsome, but he was sincere and hardworking, which attracted me to him. I would sometimes think about approaching him, but never had the courage to act. However, one day, Joshua asked me out to dinner. It turned out he felt the same way about me. From then on, we started dating regularly, and eventually, Joshua confessed his feelings for me, and we began a relationship. 6 months later, he proposed, and we decided to get married.
I can't believe I'm getting married. And to someone as wonderful as Kristen. I feel the same way. Let's build a happy home together.
Joshua is serious and calm. He willingly helps with household chores. He is an exemplary husband. Thanks for washing the dishes. You must be tired. Let me finish up. But Joshua wouldn't let go of the sponge.
It's okay. You must be tired too. Plus, you earn more than I do. Let me at least do this.
That doesn't matter. But thank you, I'm glad. I believed I could be happy with him. But things started to change about 2 years into our marriage. Joshua had never been interested in fashion and just wore whatever was comfortable. Working in the apparel industry, my professional instincts kicked in, and with his permission, I started to style Joshua. He was tall with long limbs. In other words, he had a good figure and could wear anything well. Maybe it was the special treatment from his wife, but Joshua quickly became very handsome.
Wow, I don't even recognize myself. You're amazing, Kristen. I'm glad you like it. It suits you, Joshua.
Seeing Joshua happy made me happy too. Little did I know that this would lead to future troubles. Around our first anniversary, I found out I was pregnant and gave birth to our daughter, Lisa. I took maternity leave from work, and my days were consumed by the demands of first-time motherhood. It was more challenging than any tight work schedule I'd ever had. With a baby, you can't move freely or sleep when you want. That caused me immense stress. Around that time, Joshua started acting strangely.
Hey Kristen, I'm going out with friends tomorrow on my day off. Pick out my clothes like usual.
He no longer looked at himself in the mirror with that sparkle in his eyes, yet he still wanted me to choose his outfit. I was already struggling with Lisa's nightly crying fits, and Joshua's nonchalant attitude made me furious. Joshua had his smartphone in hand, his attention fully on it. He didn't even glance at me, who was at her limit from holding Lisa. Not even offering a simple, "Want me to take over?"
Going out again?
Lately, Joshua had been going out alone every weekend. Sometimes with friends, sometimes with coworkers, but he always left early in the morning and didn't come back until late at night. I was sleep deprived from taking care of Lisa and found Joshua's behavior irritating.
You go out every week.
I couldn't help but say it in a nasty tone.
What's with that look? Can't I have some time to relax too? I work hard, you know. But lately Lisa hasn't been sleeping through the night, so I haven't had a chance to rest either. I was hoping you could help on your days off. What are you talking about?
Joshua looked at me and laughed mockingly.
What's the point of maternity leave? Look, you're not working right now. That means childcare is your job. So why should I sacrifice my days off to do your job? That's just ridiculous, unreasonable. But Lisa is your daughter too. That's why I'm working to support you both. Who do you think pays for everything? God, you're annoying. I'm going to bed. Just pick out my clothes.
At that moment, I think my eyes were filled with tears of frustration and sadness. Joshua must have noticed since we made eye contact. But Joshua just glared at me, leaving with one final remark.
Geez, you think crying will solve everything? You're just like a baby.
His words were so cruel, I was left standing there, stunned. He used to be so kind when we were newlyweds. Can time really change someone this much? Of course, not all couples stay in that honeymoon phase forever. Some even end up divorcing. In fact, divorce had crossed my mind many times. But he hadn't cheated or hit me. And when Lisa was in a good mood, he was affectionate with her. So I couldn't bring myself to do it. It's still too soon. More than anything, I couldn't take away Lisa's father just because of my impulsive thoughts. With that in mind, I managed to get through each day. But then, 4 years later, something decisive happened. Joshua's affair came to light. It turned out he met the girl at a bar. When I heard she was 20, I felt dizzy. Joshua and I were both 42. I couldn't believe he was cheating with someone less than half our age. I made up my mind to divorce him and confronted him. I had enough evidence from a private investigator. Can you look at this? I waited until 4-year-old Lisa was sound asleep, then laid out the photos and the completed divorce papers on the table.
What? I'm going to bed.
Joshua lazily glanced at the photos and then his eyes widened, speechless.
This woman forced me to link arms with her.
The photos showed Joshua and the woman, arm in arm, entering a hotel. There were also photos of them leaving.
This isn't the only proof. And you've been using our joint savings too. I know everything. Let's get a divorce.
Ugh. Joshua was momentarily flustered but quickly regained his composure and sneered. Are you really sure?
A woman like you with no charm won't ever get married again.
He seemed to be implying that I'd regret divorcing him.
Well, I don't know if there will be a next time, but I've learned that marriage doesn't guarantee happiness. Thank you for everything up to now. You arrogant bitch. That's why I got tired of you. It's all your fault.
Was my response unexpected? Joshua's face turned red, and he scribbled on the divorce papers I had prepared.
Fine. I'll give you the divorce you want. Don't come crawling back later.
Don't worry, I won't. Despite some disputes over child support and alimony, Lisa and I managed to start a new life. Lisa didn't seem very attached to Joshua, but once he was gone, she seemed to miss him.
Dad?
She asked me every day. Surprisingly, Joshua also contacted me regularly.
I want to see Lisa,
he would say. Child support and alimony payments were consistently late, and if I could, I wouldn't let him see her. But Joshua is Lisa's father. Would it be cruel to deny Lisa the right to see her father because of my own selfishness? After much deliberation, I arranged for Joshua and Lisa to meet once a month. I really didn't want to see Joshua, so I would drop Lisa off in the morning and pick her up in the evening. During their time together, I was filled with anxiety. I never spoke ill of Joshua to Lisa. In fact, before discovering his affair, I often suppressed my complaints.
Dad is always working hard. Dad loves you very much,
Anne told her. But the real Joshua was as you see him now. I had inadvertently raised his approval rating, but would Lisa get hurt meeting him? For a while, I was unsure if this was the right thing to do, but every time,
I had fun,
Lisa would say happily, so the monthly meetings continued. Before I knew it, Lisa had grown up and was now in high school. She was still a child inside, but she looked like an adult. The journey to this point had been incredibly fast. Reflecting on it, I had gone through incredible days juggling work, housework, and childcare. Raising a child is extremely challenging. It's not just about the financial aspect. Right now, I was hitting a wall.
Shut up. I know without you having to say it. If you know, then why don't you do it? I'm just asking you to clear your dishes. If you noticed, why can't you just do it too? You don't have to nag me about it. Mom, you're really annoying.
Since graduating from middle school, Lisa had plunged into her rebellious phase. She used to help with housework and we had plenty of conversations. But recently, we argued every time we saw each other, and she seemed to avoid me by staying in her room or going out. She was foul-mouthed, and even minor reprimands made her react with extreme distaste. Is this what a rebellious phase is supposed to be like? If this continues, I'll lose my mind. Lately, Lisa's attitude had been particularly terrible. She looked at me like I was something disgusting. When was the last time I saw her smile? I had talked to friends about my distress, but their kids had already passed through their rebellious phases and didn't seem as bad. But a rebellious phase will end eventually, right? I told myself that. I wanted to get along like we used to. Hoping for that, I waited for time to heal things. However, my relationship with Lisa never improved, and the days just passed by. In fact, the situation only got worse.
Lisa, you took money from my wallet again, didn't you? Even if we're family, that's theft. Enough is enough. Shut up, old hag. My allowance is too small. You're my mom, so you should give me what I want. I'm giving you enough. What are you spending it on? If you explain, I might agree to give you more.
I understood that for a high schooler like Lisa, now was the most fun time for hanging out and dressing up. I didn't intend to spoil her, but if she gave me a good reason, I wouldn't just refuse outright. But Lisa stubbornly refused to tell me why.
There's no way you'd understand, old hag. Stop prying, it feels like you're suffocating me. It's like I drew the short straw in the parent lottery. Toxic mom.
I care about you, Lisa, and I've tried to raise you well.
Hearing that makes me sad. If you care, then stop nagging about money. Dad would be more generous. But thanks to someone, I only see him once a month. And I don't care if you're sad. Just give me the money.
Even when I tried to talk seriously, she would mock me with a light-hearted laugh, making any real conversation impossible.
It's your fault I need so much money. Do you know how hard it is to deal with this face? The parts one hate the most look just like you. My eyes are too small. I wanted big, bright ones. I think your face is cute, Lisa. I understand makeup is important, but...
Are you blind? Sure, I'm way cuter than you, but seriously, have you looked in a mirror lately? No wonder Dad left you. Lisa's words never stopped belittling me. She kept finding new ways to put me down. Every day, it was something like this. Eventually, I started wishing Lisa would move out. She was my dear daughter, but the cruel words she hurled at me daily were terrifying. What scared me most was how much she seemed to enjoy it. After graduating college, Lisa finally moved out. She got a job in the neighboring state and started living on her own. I was more relieved than worried, feeling safe from her accusations and insults. It bothered me that she never contacted me, but reaching out might upset her again. No news was probably a sign that she was doing well. I forced myself to believe that. But one day, something unexpected happened. Lisa suddenly showed up at the house, with an unfamiliar man by her side. I was confused, but Lisa smiled proudly.
Isn't he handsome? This is my boyfriend, Michael.
Oh.
He's lovely. Nice to meet you, Michael. Thank you for taking care of Lisa.
Michael nodded back in greeting. Lisa had brought boyfriends home before, but never like this. Why now? Puzzled, I looked down. That's when I noticed Michael's hand. Realizing something.
What?
I gasped. Lisa immediately reacted.
Oh, you noticed? Lisa, is this?
Before I could finish, Lisa lovingly patted her stomach.
That's right. I'm going to be a mom. What?
While I was confused by the unexpected words, Lisa gave a smug look again.
Well, today, I thought I'd come because it's technically the last time. The last time?
Lisa gave me a nasty smile as I tilted my head in confusion. She took a slow, deliberate breath and then declared loudly,
I'm getting married. I won't show you my kids, and we're cutting ties.
How unbelievable. A surprise wedding announcement and a declaration of estrangement. I couldn't help but let my true feelings slip out in my astonishment.
Is that so? Good riddance.
Lisa blinked in shock at my response. She clearly hadn't expected such an answer.
What? Why?
Why?
Because you're the one who brought it up first.
I could give countless reasons. Most of all, I was thrilled at the thought of no longer having to deal with Lisa. Living alone now, I realized how grueling it was living with her. Every word from her mouth was an insult or a command. If I didn't hide my money, she'd take it. Back then, my home wasn't a place of comfort for me. With Lisa gone, I was finally savoring the peace and happiness. But even amidst this peace, I had a concern. The possibility that Lisa might come back one day. Even if she didn't, if she got married, got pregnant, and had children, there was a chance she'd return to the house. The thought of Lisa coming back with a baby was terrifying. I could vividly imagine being treated like livestock, blamed for the smallest things. But now, Lisa had clearly said it. She wouldn't show me her kids, and we were cutting ties. That meant I wouldn't have to take care of Lisa or her future kids. I could only feel joy. On the other hand, Lisa seemed confused for some reason.
Are you okay with it? You won't see your grandkids or me? Yes. No problem at all. Should I write a written pledge? Or maybe we should leave a notarized document?
My cheerful response made Lisa's face turn red. Her expression was just like Joshua's. Joshua looked the same way when I demanded a divorce, and he started yelling defiantly.
Are you really okay with this? I'm your only daughter. If you cut ties with me, you'll never hold your grandkids. Yes, no problem. Your cousin Nancy had a baby last month, so I'll consider Nancy's child as my grandkid. I'll support and cherish them.
Lisa looked like she wanted to say something, but finally,
Fine. Whatever. I have Dad,
she said before storming out. Michael hurried after her. By the way, Michael didn't say a single word the whole time he was at our house. With that, my future peaceful life was guaranteed. I spent my days joyfully, but one weekend less than a month later, there was a knock on the door. What could it be? Oh my. The camera on the doorbell showed Lisa, crying hysterically. Oh no. I sighed and reluctantly headed to the door. Long time no see, Lisa. Mom. Lisa tried to jump into my arms, but I avoided her. She stumbled into the door and looked at me resentfully. Then she began to speak immediately.
Listen, Mom. Something terrible has happened.
Something terrible? I tilted my head, and Lisa nodded. Seeing that, I muttered.
Did his wife find out about the affair?
The his being Michael from the other day.
Mom, did you know he was married?
No, I just thought it might be possible. When the two came to greet us, my eyes immediately caught sight of a silver ring on Michael's left ring finger. It was, unmistakably, a wedding ring. For a moment, I thought it might be a matching ring with Lisa, but at that time, Lisa's finger was bare. Knowing Lisa's personality, if she had a ring too, she would have boasted about it to me first. Which meant that only Michael had a ring. Lisa, did you know?
That he was married. I knew. But he told me things weren't going well with his wife and that they were getting divorced. But now, how did it come to this?
This? What happened? I asked, not out of concern but curiosity, and Lisa began talking as if she had been waiting for this moment.
I just want to be happy with Michael. But that woman, Michael's wife, she's saying she'll sue me. If her husband was cheating, it's no surprise she'd want to sue.
As someone who was once cheated on, I wanted to fully support Michael's wife. Maybe because I didn't take Lisa's side, she puffed her cheeks in obvious annoyance. She continued, sulking.
Well, now she's saying she might consider settling out of court.
Oh, that's good news.
The best thing to do is to pay the money and sincerely apologize. But, you see, I don't have any money.
Lisa looked at me with upturned eyes. I realized. This girl came here to ask me for money. Otherwise, she wouldn't have bothered visiting me. Understanding Lisa's true intention, I smiled at her. Lisa looked at me with hopeful eyes.
Money shouldn't be an issue, right? You could ask your proud dad for it? That's... Besides, isn't he about to retire just like me? He'll get a retirement bonus.
Suddenly, Lisa couldn't hold back anymore and began to shout, talking quickly.
I did. I already consulted Dad. I explained everything. But listen, Dad lied. Not only is there no retirement bonus, but he's also unemployed. He hasn't worked in years. If he had money, he would want it for himself.
I figured it was something like that.
He's always put himself first. But didn't Dad used to work at a big company? Mom spent all the money freely, that's why they divorced. Dad told you that?
Lisa nodded.
It's all lies. The reason for the divorce was completely different. No way! I heard you were so awful. Dad was saved by another woman. They loved each other, and that's why they got divorced.
I didn't know at what age he told her this, but what a thing to fill a child's head with. I scratched my head at Joshua's stupidity.
So, why is he still single if he loved that person so much?
Lisa looked up at my words.
And no matter the circumstances, isn't it against the rules to love someone else when you're already married?
This was directed at Lisa herself. If she hadn't known he was married, it would be different, but from the way she spoke earlier, it seemed she knew and still dated him. I couldn't help but point out that it was wrong.
Generally, that's true. But for me and Dad, it was just that the timing was wrong. If Michael had met me before that woman, then...
Lisa's eyes darted around. Even while defending herself, she seemed to have some awareness of her wrongdoing.
Is the reason you've been so hostile and critical towards me because of that person? Has she been saying things to you?
Lisa remained silent, not answering. I looked at her abdomen and pointed out.
The pregnancy is a lie too, isn't it? Huh?
I could faintly smell alcohol on Lisa. Even if it's Lisa, if she were really pregnant, she wouldn't be drinking alcohol.
How did you know? Michael didn't notice. Did you tell Michael that you're not pregnant? Of course not. Michael and his current wife aren't getting along because they can't have children. So he was overjoyed when I told him I was pregnant. If he finds out it was a lie, we might break up.
I held my head in my hands at her response. Lisa had been using a fictitious child as a bargaining chip in her marriage. She was using it to take Michael away from his wife.
It's a relief you're not really pregnant. You can't raise a child. What? How dare you? Just settle out of court. Pay the compensation in installments if you have to. It's the best you can do.
As I tried to close the door, Lisa's face turned pale, and she hurriedly held it open.
Wait a minute. We're not done talking. Installments? Do you know how long that would take? Who knows? But you're still young. If you try hard enough, you'll manage. Don't close the door. Are you even a mother? Hey! We're not done here. Hey!
Her desperate knocking echoed around. Even though she did that, I had no intention of going out. Lisa continued to shout for a while, but eventually gave up and left. The next day, she unexpectedly returned with someone. It was Joshua.
Long time no see.
Joshua stood arrogantly with his arms crossed, and Lisa, with a sly grin, hid behind him. This smelled like trouble. I wanted to turn them away, but I knew they wouldn't leave quietly. I had no choice but to face them. Today, I had to settle this. To avoid a scene at the front door, I moved to a nearby cafe. As soon as we sat down, Joshua began speaking without even looking at the menu.
Hey,
I heard from Lisa. That's awful. You have your severance pay, don't you? You should have enough. Ignoring his lies, he aimed to pressure me into giving them money.
Would you give up your hard-earned rewards for strangers? What are you talking about? Of course not. Lisa is your daughter, not a stranger. Are you even a mother? She was the one who declared the estrangement. Besides, she's already employed and an adult. I've fulfilled my duties as a mother.
No matter how much she insulted or mistreated me, I endured it until she became an adult and graduated from college.
And you forgot, didn't you? You still haven't paid the overdue compensation and child support. You ignore my calls about that, but you reach out when you need something. What? That's...
He was clearly flustered. So focused on my money, he had forgotten his own debts.
I was willing to give up on contacting you because I didn't want to deal with you. But if you're coming to me, I'll pursue the compensation to the ends of the earth.
So, Beside the bewildered Joshua, Lisa couldn't wait and shouted.
Dad, you said you'd handle this. Why are you losing to Mom?
I see, Joshua had come because Lisa pleaded with him.
Mom was right. Dad, you're useless.
I hadn't said anything that harsh.
Hey, I was just tricked by Dad. You get it, right? I'm the victim here. Ever since I graduated middle school, it's been nothing but bad-mouthing Mom. Dad is the worst. The other day, I just slipped up about the estrangement. Let's get along as a family again. I'm your precious daughter, right?
She was acting like the heroine of a tragedy. I don't feel the slightest bit guilty.
If I had known this would happen, I should have refused all visits back then. You wanted to meet him, so I thought I was being selfish by tying you down. What? What do you mean? You're just like him. Always blaming others, never reflecting, always making excuses that it's not your fault.
I thought I had raised Lisa with love every day, but she ended up being just like Joshua, who only visits once a month. And to think she had an affair with a married man. Blood is thicker than water, they say.
I truly regret it. I shouldn't have let you meet him. If I hadn't, I wouldn't care so little about my daughter now. Mom, when we see each other every day, you say terrible things. No thanks, no apologies. How can I think of you as a precious daughter after years of such living?
Lisa seemed to search for excuses, but apparently couldn't find any. She just stared at me with her mouth moving.
You were unconditionally cute when you were little, but without consideration or gratitude, there's no such thing as unconditional love forever. But you're my mom, right?
Even looking at Lisa, whose mouth was twitching as she asked, I felt nothing.
I really don't care about you anymore. I'm sorry. And from now on, we're strangers, so stop contacting me or visiting. It's a nuisance.
I looked coldly at the two sitting across from me.
I'm telling both of you. If you do this again, I'll call the police without hesitation. Don't ever show up in front of me again. I don't want to hear your voice or see your face. That's it.
When I stood up from the cafe seat, the two of them were staring blankly with pale faces, showing the same expression. I headed straight to the real estate agent. Although I said that, they might visit again. In that case, I have to go somewhere they can't find me. I hope I find a good apartment. Moving is a hassle, but I walked away feeling refreshed. After that, I successfully moved. The new place is a small studio apartment, but it's newly built, so it's very clean and comfortable. Of course, I haven't told Joshua or Lisa the address. I even thought about blocking their numbers, but decided against it. I need to leave an escape route just in case they do something unpredictable. By the way, the aftermath was left on my voicemail. First, Lisa's affair partner apparently got divorced. Lisa was.
Now Michael is mine.
Rejoicing, but he stopped contacting her. It seems he couldn't forgive the fake pregnancy lie. Lisa is being sued for damages by his wife and is paying it off little by little. When she tried to ignore it, they almost showed up at her workplace. The amount was so large that she finally understood the gravity of her actions.
I'll never get involved with a married man again.
She cried over the phone. She said she no longer meets Joshua. After that conversation, the two had a big fight. Being both selfish, they couldn't reconcile and broke up in a fight. Joshua also left a voicemail on another day.
I'm out of money, getting old, and no one cares about me. Lisa ignores me too. I'm all alone and lonely. I wish I could be with you again. I want to spend time with you once more.
Basically, he wanted to get back together. Hearing that, I was horrified and deleted it immediately. How dare he say that after looking down on me so much? Joshua is apparently getting by with part-time day jobs, but I wonder how he manages to live on that. I'm finally enjoying living alone after a long time. Thanks to a life without being insulted or belittled by anyone, I'm mentally and physically healthy. I put all my retirement money into savings and investments. It was more than I expected, so I'm happy. I'm enjoying every day now, but I'm thinking of finding a hobby next. A hobby after turning 60, there seems to be a lot to find, and I'm very excited about it.